and welcome to Off the Lot. The film industry is changing fast, and if you want to make movies, it's time to become your own gatekeeper. If you've got a vision and the drive to make it happen, this podcast is for you.
We're your hosts, Ken Kabatov and Anthony Epp, and every week we dive into the hustle, challenges, and real-world strategies of independent filmmaking. We talk to directors, producers, and industry pros about what it really takes to get your film made.
So if you're serious about making movies, hit follow or subscribe. It helps us keep this going. And if you like what you hear, spread the word, share the episode, leave a comment, and help more indie filmmakers find Off the Lot. Let's dive in. Okay, Anthony, how are you?
Well, as you'll see, this is a little bit inside. I got a new mic, so
you sound great.
I have to say that it's been super fun. I actually went back this week and re-listened to a couple of episodes because I had some people email me telling me that they really enjoyed this episode or that episode. And so I went back and re-listened to a couple of them. And I'm really getting into this. This has been a lot of fun putting these podcasts together. I just love having these discussions every week.
Yeah, it's been great. It's something that I really look forward to every week. It's been keeping both of us super busy, but not in an overwhelming way. Like, it is a lot of work to put these episodes together, but it's fun. And at least right now, it seems like we have the time in between juggling all of the other development that we have going on, but it's been a blast. I look forward to it, and the people that we've met.
And a happy belated birthday, because I know it was your birthday last weekend.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. We had this crazy thing happen where we went out to a restaurant and was supposed to be meeting up with a bunch of friends. The reservation was at 7:15, and so my girlfriend and I showed up. We were running a little bit late. We got there at 7:20. And for some reason, there was confusion about our reservation. And they were like, okay, we'll look into it. We'll figure it out. And I'm like, it's for 10 people. Like, I hope the table's set up. And so we were in the waiting area, and we waited there for 25 minutes. And my friends hadn't showed up either. And I'm like, well, it's Saturday. Everybody's always a little bit late or fashionably late. Nobody wants to be the first ones. And then we were just sitting there, and I was starting to get a little annoyed. I'm like, this is crazy. We had a reservation. And then the manager came up, and they're like, oh, actually, your friends are already at the table. They've been here for a half hour waiting for you. And I was like, wait, what? How is this possible? And yeah, about 40 feet away was our table with all of my friends waiting there. And they didn't text me because they were like, Ken's always so punctual. We don't want to bother him, but like, this is crazy that he's not here, that he's not even the first one here. And for me, I'm like, I don't want to bother my friends and be like, hey, where are you? It's my birthday. Why aren't you here on time? And so we just didn't bother texting each other. And we were, sitting apart for 30 minutes. So it was a funny start to the evening, and it was a little annoying for sure, but
it's overly considerate of each other's time, and also of your expectations of each other. You both expect each other to be so punctual that.
Yeah. But like, just a fluke that nobody went to the washroom they would have walked past us, or why didn't I just go walk around the restaurant to see, it was funny. So it turned out to be a fantastic evening, and the restaurant was great about it. They really took care of us. And so that was fun. But all of that to say, on the weekend, I decided not to really work too much. However, this week I did decide to start a newsletter. And I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but again, with just how busy, both of us are, and you have 2 newsletters that you run. And I think it's a great idea to really build a community and like this podcast, right? That's what I love about doing this podcast is the people that we've met and putting ourselves out there and learning so much. And I realized that with a newsletter, that might be an interesting approach to the whole development process as well, and just seeing who else is out there who wants to talk about certain topics in the film industry and go from there.
Yeah, it's a fantastic way to just build a connection with people that you already know, but also for people to discover you and feel like they get to know you a little bit through your thoughts about what it is that you're working on. And there's a big thing about seeing people grow and develop and work in public that I think is it's especially in this world where things are so noisy and where social media takes over our lives so much, and where it's just hard to know where to turn to. It's nice to have these sort of connections with people through a newsletter, even though it's largely one sided, where you're going to send out these deep
Yeah.
thoughts every week to your people, and a few of them are going to respond. It's actually quite lovely to get responses and start conversations with people.
Today, the day that this podcast is airing is the first day of the newsletter. So let's see what people say. Maybe everybody's going to hate it. Maybe it'll be a waste of time. But
Mhm.
it was fun to put together, and I look forward to keeping it up. And including your newsletters, we'll put the links in our show notes in case people are interested in keeping in touch another way. How about you? What else is going on in your world?
Just finishing up our Creative BC grant application for the Quiet Canadians. Then after that, we have I think you and I both have pitches with Telefilm next week too. So that's something that getting
That's
ready
right.
for putting together how we plan to pitch our projects to Telefilm, and then just continuing to take steps forward. We've made a lot of progress that unfortunately is like so many things in this industry. You can't always talk about everything that's going on behind the
Yeah.
scenes. So we set a date of November to kind of start production this year. Every day it starts to feel more and more likely that that's going to happen. So that's really kind of cool.
That's fantastic. Well, that's yeah, really good news. And yeah, speaking of Telefilm, we ran our practice pitch the other day with my producing partners, and we had a good time doing it. It seems pretty straightforward. I mean, Chris and I pitch all the time, and so this was just another pitch to add to the pile. But we're excited to meet with Telefilm because also it's a different type of pitch than what we normally do as far as a TV series or even just a feature to a studio or something like that. So, as you and I have talked about before, Telefilm and the regional fund, it's quite a competitive fund, and there are a lot of people. Certainly in Vancouver, in the small film industry here, I know a lot are applying. So, best of luck to
Yeah.
everybody.
I talked to someone from Telefilm the other day and they said they got a lot more applications this year than they have in the past. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
gonna be competitive, but it's also these are good practice things like putting together pitches, putting together these various materials that you need. It's always good to have them, and they're very adaptable for private investors, for sponsors, and things like that.
All right, so that brings us to the main portion of the episode. This week, we sat down with an up and coming indie filmmaker who's really making a name for herself in the Vancouver film community. Her name is Ava Marie Safai, and I found out about her a couple years ago when I attended the Crazy Eights Film Festival screening. Her short film Zip is incredibly powerful, and it received a massive standing ovation at the screening. And since then, the film has traveled the world playing at major festivals, solidifying Ava's career as a director.
In 2024, Ava was chosen as one of Telefilm Canada's Talent to Watch recipients, receiving $250,000 to put towards her feature directorial debut, a horror film titled Foreigner. We were lucky enough to catch Ava during post production, and so we really got into the details of what it took to pull off her first feature and the things she learned along the way. So, without further ado, here's our chat with Ava Maria Safai.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're very excited to talk to you. You have such an amazing career thus far here in Vancouver between all of the short films that you've done, the Crazy Eights, and now your first feature, multiple features actually. We're excited to just dive into all of that stuff. But let's start just sort of at the beginning and talk about what we always talk about with our guests. Like, how did you get into film? Was this something that you always wanted to do? And sort of what was your journey to where you are today?
For sure. So both of my parents are musicians. My dad plays piano and my mom teaches like kids music. So I've always been on stage for as long as I can remember. And they were always making me learn like a bunch of different instruments, like violin and singing and all that stuff. So I grew really fond of just like being in front of people. And to be honest, like the validation that comes with like people clapping after you
Yeah.
do something well. So yeah, that's like how I caught the bug. And then I hated acting. Like I genuinely hated it so much, but I really liked writing and I really liked directing. So I joined my theater program's high school drama program, and I insisted after like years of not being part of it because I did a half day program. Long story there, but I insisted that I really wanted to like write the original school play. And then my drama teacher was like, I don't think you're ready. So I just started showing up to like all the meetings. And he was like, hey, I think you're kind of good at this. I was like, thank you so much. So then he let me join the directing program. And then he was also like, hey, I think you're kind of good at this. And then he forced me to like act in the play as the lead. And then he was like, hey, I think you're good at this. So like it was just a lot of accidents. Yeah, I ended up loving it. And then I went to acting school. I also auditioned for the theater program at UBC kind of as a joke. Like I was like, there's no way that I'm going to get in because they only pick a certain amount of people per year. And like it was never my main thing. I was in English lit because I thought I would do more writing.
Yeah.
And then I got in. And then I graduated in 2020 when it was COVID and there was no work for me as an actor. I started a company by accident. And then now I'm here. So
You
that's
started a
like,
company by accident.
yes.
What was that about?
So it was me and then one of my classmates at the time. We were like, hey, we're not getting any work. We really want to put on a production of Othello. So then we co started a company together to do that. His name is Nico. We went on to date. And then now he's my ex, but we're still great friends. And he lead produced my feature. It's a bit of a wild story, but
So
Yeah.
generate your own opportunity.
yes, 100%.
That's amazing. So you started this company, you went on to produce an adaptation of Othello. And what happened next? You started making short films?
Yes, so we were going to do the Othello, and then like all the COVID protocols came into place, and there was like no funding happening. Like all the theaters were being shut down, so we had to let Othello go. So we started this thing called the incubator program, where we would take like a bunch of actors that were like similar to us, like out of work and wanting to just get something on their portfolio after school, and then they co-wrote like a feature together that was an interactive feature. So you could kind of like choose your own adventure. And then we
Oh,
made that with $750 that we raised on Indiegogo. And then we streamed it online during COVID. And then that was like the first thing that we ever produced, so to speak. And the actors got demo footage out of it. And a lot of them like ended up getting represented after if they hadn't had agents before. So we were like, hey, this is kind of working. So then we did it again the next year with Faking It. And that one is in post as well right now. And then I also with this theme of me applying for things as a joke, I did the Crazy Eights after and I was like, there's no way. And then that happened. And then after the Crazy Eights, I applied for the Telefilm and I was like, there's definitely no way because I just had come off the Crazy Eights and I wrote the application the night before and the whole feature script. So like it was
Wow.
wow.
I feel like there's just been a lot of chain events in my life that it's like I have worked really, really hard, don't get me wrong, but like the big milestones have all been totally random. I've
What,
done all the training and like I've been taking classes and stuff my whole life and just writing and directing with Barbies and people eventually, but like
yeah.
in terms of the big funding points or like starting the company, those milestones, completely random.
Well, there's a great deal of luck in this industry and timing, right? And so you are talented. I've seen your work. You're very, very good at what you do. And yeah, you applied at the right time with the right project.
And it seems like overnight success takes years, right? So that there's that whole thing of, you think that it seems random and unpredictable, but actually there is a lot of work that goes into it. It's just the work that's going, it's the at bats, it's the training, so to speak.
Yes, it's like I was always doing it and then there would just be these kind of like chance events, but I wouldn't say no to them. Like I always,
Right.
whenever there was an opportunity, I'd still just be like, oh well, worst they can do is reject the grant or, you know,
Yeah.
company falls apart and
Yeah,
get
exactly.
nonprofit.
Life
Yeah.
goes on and you'll find something else. So
Yeah,
let's talk about Crazy Eights a little bit.
sure.
For listeners that may not know what the Crazy Eights Film Festival is, can you describe sort of what that organization's all about and what that process was?
For sure. So Crazy Eights is a great organization. It was the first to really give me a platform of such a large community of people watching some of my work. Really what it is you make a short film in 8 days. So you have 3 days to film it and then 5 days in post. People apply and pitch a story with a video. And then if you get through that round, you go in for a live pitch. And then if you get through that round, you go into like a script story development session and then hopefully they pick you and then you become part of the top 6 and the 6 films get at my year, it was $1,000 cash and then like $50,000 of like in-kind stuff. So that was also my first time connecting with all the gear houses and stuff that now I work with and I try to support back. And yeah, and then this year I'm producing a Crazy Eights for a friend. So it's nice to learn from all the things that I did not do well my first time and do better this time.
Oh, that's great that you're producing one. That's awesome. Congratulations. Yeah, it's
Very full circle.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
It's such a competitive process too, right?
For sure. And the way that I found out about it is, again, chance encounter. When I was 16, I was dating someone at the time whose cousin got into Crazy Eights and had like told me. So the seed had been planted like 10 years or whatever ago. And then again, when I was 22 or 23, I went and I saw Crazy Eights. It was like the year of, I think it was Consumer was one of the movies that year. And I was with my co-writer at the time, and we were like, we can do this. We can write a script that has like a fun twist and like that people seem to like. And then I struggled for the whole year to come up with what I wanted to do. I went to Poland to visit my family for my cousin's wedding, and I saw kind of all my family members at the end of the trip putting on their like mandatory hijabs and like boarding the plane. And I was thinking of how they're going back to Iran after we had like such a great family event together. And then I fell asleep on the plane and I had a dream about the movie. And then that's what I submitted.
Wow.
Yeah, and tell us about the movie. I've seen it. It's fantastic. I was there for the standing ovation it got at the premiere. But for anybody that's unfamiliar, what is Zip all about?
Yeah, Zip is about a girl named Melody. She's 16, and on her birthday, she wakes up with a zipper that is sewing her mouth shut. And it's interesting because she really wants to sing at her school talent show, but she can't because her dad does it for her. So it's all about women, life, freedom. I wrote it at the time where that movement was very prominent on social media, and I feel like it was also really good timing because just like awareness was drawn to this situation that I already knew a lot about. And I had come off a surgery on my own throat because I was dealing with like notes from singing so much that I couldn't speak for a little bit. So like the two ideas kind of coalesced.
It turned into a really interesting, it's a really interesting way to take that sort of that real experience and turn it into a metaphorical story as well.
Thank you.
As far as the Crazy Eights of it all goes, you get selected. You have quite a bit of prep time, right, to get the movie off the ground.
Yeah, it's okay for short. Definitely enough. Yeah.
Yeah, but then the crazy part, I guess this is why it's called Crazy Eights, is you have 3 days to shoot and 5 days to edit it, and then it's done, and that's the movie that you were left with. That's the movie that premieres in front of 1,200 people.
For sure. Yes.
Yeah, that's crazy. What's that like, making the short film in basically 8 days?
Yeah. So what did we do? We had 2 locations. One of them was the co-founder of Harlequin's house, and then the other one was a school, the Vancouver Japanese language school. They're really great, and they've supported everything I've done. So shout out. Yeah, so we filmed first at the co-founder's house for about a day. We filmed like all the interior house stuff. And then on the following morning, we did some of the smaller scenes. So we started with all the big group scenes to just get that out of the way. And then we did kind of like pickups almost of like Melody alone dancing in her room, or like Melody and her dad. And then we did company move to the school, and we shot the first part of the ending, but we ran out of time. And I was like panicking. I was like, oh my gosh, we have like pretty much the beginning of our movie and the middle, and then no ending. LOL. I remember my producers were like, it's gonna be fine. We're at this location tomorrow. Anyway, we're filming like some classroom scenes. It's gonna work. What I had thought, on the third day was gonna be the chiller day. We're just doing some classroom stuff. Ended up being also the pickups for the like final scene of the movie. And then we got to end with that, which was cool because spoiler, she's like on the stage and singing. And then at the end, like everybody got up and like clapped and stuff. I remember like crying a lot while that was being filmed. And I think like someone turned to me and was like, oh, this is going to be good. And then my editor is my best from high school at Christy Trick. And he had agreed to come on and like edit the whole thing. And then he got like super sick on the last day. So our associate editor, Jeff Lee, was very clutch and like helped a lot with just like getting assemblies and stuff ready for him. And then on the next day, the Monday, I like came over to his house and we edited the whole thing together till like 6 a.m. And we were like moving, like I'd be like, move it here. And then he'd be like, move it there. So it was very funny. It felt very whimsical because like we
Yeah.
were so sleep deprived for those like 2 days, Monday, Tuesday. And then Wednesday, I think I had added like the 10-second countdown. So the picture lock wasn't synced to all the sound and the music.
Oh no.
But it just like caused a whole headache on the Thursday because the 10-second countdown was there and then it wasn't. We had like 1 hour with our sound mixer and then a couple hours with our colorist on the
And
following.
the sound mixing and all of like these services, these are all provided by Crazy Eights, right? So
Yeah.
local Vancouver companies would agree to help out in some way, whether it's Sunbelt or MBS for camera and lighting gear. Is that right? And so with sound, you also had help?
So with sound and color, those were provided by Crazy Eights. And then, yeah, the sound design, Foley, dialogue editing, music, and then the actual edit was our team. So
Yeah.
we kind of got together, which was really cool. Because again, that was an introduction for me to like, oh, post houses. Like, I don't have to edit everything I do by myself. Like, there
Right.
are like color this for me. And I think it was the first time I'd even heard of color. It was the first time I'd ever worked with a dolly. Like there was so many things that were really new to me.
Yeah, that's so
And
cool. Yeah. Well, you
yeah,
couldn't tell. And so wait, was this your first short film?
in an industry standard kind of way, yeah. I mean, I had made shorts with Barbies, and like I was in my high school drama program, and they had like a film class, and I
Right.
made some high school film shorts.
But this was the
yeah,
first sort of bigger step.
yeah,
Wow.
Crazy Eights really is a kind of a semi-professional project because you
yeah.
are getting all of those professional services. So for a lot of people, I think for a short film, it's probably the most that they've probably ever worked with before in terms of professional services and professional crews. And
Oh yeah, I was used to like I had a Canon Rebel all through high school, and I was used to like filming everything handheld with my Canon Rebel. I later acquired a Blackmagic Pocket 4K and then like a shoulder rig that my first DP I'd ever worked with recommended, and we would just shoot everything like handheld or like on a tripod. But like I'd never like cinematography was never my main thing starting out because I always had come from acting and writing, and I was like all about story. So
Mhm.
it's been nice to like grow through just like having access to equipment. And I think that's something that I might mention on this is just like how much of a privilege it is to kind of like be a filmmaker because there's a lot of things that you learn just from having access to things. And so it is something that I feel like almost like the wealthy have like an advantage to if they have access to all those things. So it's nice that these kinds of programs exist so that everybody can have a chance to work with the equipment.
The great thing about it is that you get to learn on the Canon, or I mean, even these days you can learn on something, even like an iPhone or something like that. Just learning the trick, the storytelling tactics. That doesn't necessarily mean you're getting super high quality end result, but the technical skills are learnable on much more inexpensive equipment.
After you finished Zip and it premiered, what's been going on with that film since? Like you went on the festival circuit. How has it performed?
Yeah, so shout out to James from Sparky. He's also one of my first believers. He
James is great. He helped us out on the Dukabor as well. So yeah, big fan of James.
he's awesome. Yes, thank you, James. But he at like the TV screening for Zip was like, I think this one's going to festivals, and I was like, what is a festival? I didn't know. And then I started just like applying on like Film Freeway, and then it like got into a couple. So, and I was like, wait, Oscar qualifying. I was like, so it's really just like one step away from like being considered for that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Like, the first one was Calgary, which is like an Academy qualifying one and a Canadian Screen Award qualifying one. So yeah, we just like applied, got in, and then it went to Calgary CineQuest. It went to Vancouver Horror Show. It won at Chilliwack for Best Short. It went to Whistler, Tallgrass, many more. The list is on Zip the Film on Instagram.
Okay, so you get those festivals. What does the short film and the festivals, like, what does that lead to? Does it actually open a door for you to anything, to your next project?
Good question. I wouldn't say at this point. I feel like it's different for shorts versus features because with shorts, you're grouped together with a lot. But what I got out of it was just like great experience and a lot of feedback, like a lot of different communities of people watching the films, a lot of connections, I think, with like film programmers that hopefully will want Foreigner in the future. I really like clicked with everybody that had picked the film. I got to travel to like a lot of places. There were some festivals that were able to fly me out or provide a hotel, and that was really cool. And then there were some that I was like, oh my God, I have to pay like $3,000 to fly here or something. So filmmakers beware, like festivals come with a cost
Mhm.
sometimes. Plan, save your money. So that's something I've learned too is like include that in your budgets from now on, like a festival submission fee or festival flight fee. And then I guess some of them were CSA qualifying. So we also are currently like in consideration, I suppose. Like people could vote
Mhm.
for Zip to be considered for a Canadian Screen Award nomination. So yeah, like those kinds of things, just the experience of being at a festival. And they do offer cool things like workshops and stuff where you can hear other filmmakers speak to things. So yeah, I'd say it's like film festivals for me have been more about the experience, but where I've grown the most has been through like incubators, workshops. I know Blood in the Snow provides like the Bits Horror Lab, which Foreigner was a part of. And that was really good because we got to meet with like distributors for the first time and like pitch. So things like that have been.
Oh, that's interesting. And that was before you made the film, or at what point in the process was that?
That was before we made the film. That was in development.
Oh,
Yeah.
very cool. And then talking about the festival circuit, did you have a strategy as far as going out to festivals with the film, or did you, just look at Oscar qualifying, or how did you pick your festivals?
Yeah, we Crazy Eights provides a list of like all of the festivals in the world, I think, and then like they indicate which ones are like considered A plus plus tier, which would be like your cons and Sundance and stuff. So I just kind of started at the top and like worked my way down based on like price. So I had my own budget. I was like, okay, I'm going to not spend more than 2,000 on festivals. So I submitted like for a bunch and then waited and I was like, okay, I'm hearing back from these ones. Oh, here's like another round of some more coming up that I want to apply to. I'm going to apply. And there's some very many that I didn't get into and very many that we did. So that was kind of my strategy is just go down a list and see also like which festivals might align with the topic of the film. But Zip was very like broad because it was like a genre film, but it was also kind of political. So I
Right.
feel like there was like a couple different ways of marketing it.
Yeah, there's
But
sort of a
the nice
social message to it as well.
Yes, exactly. So
Yeah.
and there's, like, some comedy with, like, the 2 best friends in the classroom and stuff, so, like, which that I think that did well, and, like, Tallgrass, like, people really like to, like, laugh at the movie, and then there was, like, St. John's Women's International Film Festival. That one, like, worked really well because it was, like, a women-focused film, and I felt like the audience, like, really resonated with the pain of the lead. So, yeah, like, each festival had their own reaction to it, and
Yeah.
I think Pitch for Zip was different than anything because it was so broad, but like Foreigner is a little more niche, like where it's more horror. It's a little campy. There's like 2000s elements in it, so I think that'll be more genre focused in like when I'm submitting.
Because you mentioned Foreigner, it gave you opportunities to kind of talk about and pitch Foreigner, kind of coming out of this when you're going to these festivals and these incubators and so on, and then you start to bring your feature project out to light. Let's talk about that a little bit and sort of developing that project. Now, was Foreigner your first feature developed film, other than, or did you have films before that?
The incubator projects, again, are like where the way I describe it is the actors come together and they like write their project. So that was Faking It. There was a web series, I Killed Maddie Forbes, and then there was Inhumane. So those were like the actors, we co created it together. We like took turns behind the camera. It was really about like building community.
Oh, very cool.
Foreigner to me was more about like there was a real formula of like I was the director, this is the DOP, this is the, we're not working with like 3 DOPs. We're not working like the crew's changing every day. It was like a very consistent team. And then, yeah, did I miss another question? That was, yeah.
No, that's kind of so Foreigner would be sort of your first sole director film that you made. So let's talk about developing that project.
Awesome. So I love Telefilm, and they know this. I told them in Toronto when I saw them in person. But in their guidelines, they had this thing of like, we really want to make Canadian content. And I was like, what does that even mean? And then I looked through like the past things they had funded and like what had won a CSA in like recent years. And I was like, all of these are set in like Ontario. And they're like about like immigrant, like struggling and like crying. Like it's all just like trauma, trauma, trauma. So I wrote this like very angry director's vision statement where I was like, here's what you guys asked me for. And like, I don't know what it means. Like, what does being a Canadian mean? And then I just started like riffing with myself. And I was like, so that's why I'm bringing you Foreigner, which is a movie all about a girl who moves to Canada and then becomes a demon. And then like, that's the idea just like popped in my head. And I was like, this is kind of funny and campy. And me and the co-founder of Harlequin had spent like the day trying to, like force out a story. And then he went home and then I was just alone and mad. So I like wrote the pitch and then I was like I was like, I'm going to rewrite this so that it's a little less like violent. And and then I just started like free writing the script. And that's kind of how I approach my writing is once I start, I don't let myself stop. So I have to get like a draft out, even if it sucks. So I wrote as much as I could. And then it got to Saturday. This was the Friday before the pitch was due. Got to the Saturday, and then I invited my best friend over and the co-founder of Harlequin over, and we like read it together. And I was like, I think I have it. I have like this idea. It's working. I just like
hold on. You wrote the script in a day?
I did.
Oh my God.
Wow.
It was a fever dream. Yes.
That is insane. Okay, I haven't heard of that happening.
Yes. I feel like for me, it's either that or it doesn't get written at all. Is like usually how it is with most of my projects that I do on my own is I usually write them kind of all at once. Because if I don't, it just drags on and then it never gets made. Like it just sits there, one scene is done and I never finish the rest. So I lock myself in a room and I force myself.
I'm going to need to take the rest of our time here to process that, but that's insane. Okay, cool. Very, very cool.
I absolutely love that because it's that whole thing of like, I don't have time to write a script. Yeah, you just need 48 hours basically, and you'll have a screenplay ready to go.
Okay, so you then invited everybody over to read the script, give any final notes and feedback, and then what happened?
The co-founder and my friend from high school came over and we worked on the script.
Okay, so then you submitted to Telefilm. When was this? This was 2022 or 2023?
This was 2023.
And when did you find out? You submitted in May, and when did you find out about getting the funding?
I found out in October, I think.
Okay.
If that's correct. And at the same time, I'd applied for the BITS Development Lab because they'd reached out to me because I'd applied with Zip. And they were like, hey, do you also have like anything in development? We're doing this lab. And I was like, you know what? I have the perfect film just for you.
I had something.
I submitted both around the same time. And then I heard back from both around the same time. So next thing I know, timing again was amazing. In November, I was like doing the BITS lab and I was meeting before the movie had been made, right after it had got funding with all these distributors. We were pitching it. My current boyfriend came up with an idea to put my producer in like a blonde wig and have him and we put like we had a bottle of hair dye and stuff with us because the movie's about a girl going blonde. And so then we went into that. And then right from there, hired our co-producer. January, we started hiring all of our HODs. We did a long round of auditions from like January through to March, hired cast in March, and then prepped for like 6-7 months before we filmed in July, August.
That's a good number of prep.
Thank you. Yes, it felt better.
Yeah,
locations were hard, like always, to find. Apart from that, like the time was good to just sit with the script.
And you shot it here in Vancouver?
We did. We shot it in Vancouver in August.
I'd love to actually just talk about a little bit about what the story is so we have context for how, the rest of this production went. What can you tell us about Foreigner?
For sure. So Foreigner's about a girl named Yasamin, or Yasamin in Farsi, and in English they keep calling her Yazi or Yasmin. She moves from Iran to Canada after the death of her mom, and she is trying to acquaint herself with like the culture and like make new friends and kind of start fresh. She meets a trio of three white girls who are very fun, very campy. They all like dress exactly the same. They like talk exactly the same. They're a little bit creepy, a little bit cute. And they convince her that the best way to like fit into Canadian culture, to make it to Canadian Idol, be popular and cool, is to dye her hair blonde. So they buy this like hair dye, put it on her head, and then everything starts to fall apart.
Oh, interesting. And
Mm,
then she becomes a demon. Um,
amen.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
Yes.
So in terms of pre-production, locations, did you have any studio builds of any kind? Was it entirely on location?
Yes. Let me actually just pull up my calendar, my prep calendar, so I can
Oh,
track
sure.
everything I had. We started with like pre-meetings with HODs in like late February. We had producer meetings every single Sunday leading up to the shoot. We did prelims. So like, we did a concept meeting where I presented a 50-page presentation of like my vision for the movie. And then the HODs did the reverse. So they did their prelims where they showed me their sketches and their ideas of how we wanted to film it, what kind of lenses we were going to use. And then we tried to get on the same page. So like they would give me a little and then I'd be like, here's mine. And we built it kind of together. And I was really lucky. Most of the HODs on this are like currently and still, even then, we're like my closest friends. So that was interesting too, because it's hard to balance friendship and work, unique
Yeah.
situation because we were paying all of them. So I do kind of get say because I'm directing and paying. But I really like and respect all these people and they all have great ideas. So it was, a lot of compromise and balance. And then around April, we were like messaging sponsors. We were having like camera tests. Our casting was all done.
Well, here's a
In
question. So with Crazy Eights, you get a lot of support from the local organizations that are here, but with Talent to Watch now, what was your budget? Like they give you 250,000, correct? And is that what you were dealing with then, or did you raise more money beyond that?
We did raise more money beyond that. I want this to be as good as it can possibly be. So we applied to, I think, 3 or 4 more funding sources, and then they approved. So the final budget for the movie is around 400,000 is where it's sitting at, which is great. Like it covers prep, production, and post. It sounds like a lot of money, but it's actually not. There were some
Yeah.
people that were working, like day calls that are making, 100 or 200 a day. There were some people that were working as actors making $50 a day. Like it's not very glamorous. Like me directing, editing, producing, like multiple roles and like getting paid one flat rate for
Yeah.
everything and just like reimbursements on company overhead. Like
Yeah.
it's really not a lot for a year of my life. More. I'm still in post. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it's been like 2 years on this project and one flat rate. And for the HODs, like 6-7 months of their lives coming to Tech Scouts, doing like 5-hour long Zoom meetings with me. So I really understand that a lot of what happened to make this production happen was like pretty much volunteer, I would say. Like it was a
Yeah.
lot of friends pulling through. That's where I feel like the biggest help was like the community of just people showed up. And then Sunbelt and Keslow and Sparky's were able to provide gear to us at very, very nicely given rates. So
Mhm.
thanks to them. The Bits Lab also, I think the owner of Sunbelt provided us with like a $10,000 grant as part of being in the Bits Lab. So that was like applied towards some of the gear that we got.
Oh,
For
very
this.
cool. Yeah, if someone says $400,000 to make a movie and you think, oh, well, that must be able to be stretched a long way. But you really realize that you have to, if you want to make it right, you really are pulling a lot of people's goodwill and just desire to make the project and to work with you to help make it happen.
And like this movie was like not easy, like without spoiling too much.
Yeah.
There's like fire in it, and there's like lifts and like
Yeah.
prosthetics, and like there's a lot of stuff because it's a horror movie, partly like psychological
Yeah.
horror, I would say. And there's just a lot of stuff. There's VFX, like, and these things cost money and labor, and to shoot in a neighborhood like where people live, that costs money and like requires polling. Like that was the first time I'd ever had to do polling in a neighborhood, and my producers and my location team was so great about that because they did it all for
Yeah.
me, and I got to like focus on all the other stuff that I had to do. But like I'd say the biggest help for the telefilm was like the people that
Right.
dedicated like I don't even know thousands of hours, and that I think they should have been paid more for. So hopefully at some point down the line we can start funding for indies at like $1 million would be great. And it's nice to know like telefilm does do that. And I think that's the spirit of the Talent to Watch program, is like they start you with this amount to see like what you can do within this like $250,000 to $500,000 range. I think that's like where they cap it. And then based on how you do with telefilm, like it informs their future funding decisions.
And then as a director, obviously this is your project. So you're a producer, director, writer on all of this. At what point do you ever feel like you had to take the producer hat off and just focus on being a director? And who sort of helped you do that, if that was the case?
I had an amazing team. I had like 5 producers. I really hope I'm not missing anyone, but I had Nico, my lead. I had Lesha, co-producer, Nancy, line producer, Nick, executive producer, and then Kaylee as our associate producer. So we had a team with me as well of 6. And Telefilm would like me to be credited as an exec because it's kind of weird when you're like directing a project on this scale and producing. But I felt a lot of the times that I was like also producing, just because some of it like at this budget scale is so personal. Like it's like you have to go to the location directly as the director and like plead and be like, please like give us a discount. It's my first thing.
Yeah, I think that whole thing is actually a little ridiculous. The same thing happened with me in the DGC, where they're like, no, you can't be credited as a producer on this. You have to be an executive producer. I'm like, yeah, but I'm producing the movie with Cole and Chris. And they're like, yeah, but you shouldn't be. You're the director. And I'm like, I'm
but you are.
It's about
But you
my
are.
family. Like I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Like I'm the guy. Like you just said, I have to talk to the location owner to be like, please help let us shoot here because it's really important to my family and my history about. And it's like, I'm producing this, you guys.
I think that you shouldn't be like. I agree. They're right. I shouldn't be the lead producer, and I don't want to be. I felt supported enough by my team that I felt like I didn't have to be like the main one, like doing everything all the time, but like there is a lot of work, and so that was like interesting as well for me.
The
maybe
politics.
Yeah, you never fully let go of that producer role, no matter what. Anyway, in the indie world, I mean, in a director world where you're hired to make this project that you did not generate yourself, then yes, I can see where that comes into play. But I don't see how, on an independent film project, any director is not directly responsible for the actual logistics of their production. Even if, I mean, obviously we all need help. I mean, you need help to film it. You need actors. You need, everybody's helping and stepping in and taking different pieces, right? But
there was never a day where something wouldn't pop up. Like, for me, just being a director would mean like I just get to sit and work with the actors and drink my water and do my shot list and just talk to the HODs. Like that's my idea of what directing is. But there would be random stuff like, oh no, we forgot the container of food that we needed. So then I'm on my phone and I'm like door dashing this container of food to set, or like, oh no, we left the actor doesn't have the right nails for pickups. So then I'm door dashing like fake nails to set, or like
exactly.
my family was like really clutch as well. Like my mom cooked all the food for everything with one of her employees at our music school. They like made all the food for the whole production. And then my boyfriend, like on a day I forgot the picture car at home, and he drove it like from Vancouver all the way, or North Vancouver all the way through downtown to like South Vancouver for filming. So things like that. My dad built one of the sets. So yeah, my family was also like super, super clutch. We're still storing
that support.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. So how many days of production did you have?
We had 17 shooting days initially, and then 2 pickup days, and then 1 camcorder. No, yeah, 1 full camcorder recording day, I'd say.
Oh, okay. That's like a thing that's in the movie. They have a
Yeah, there's
camcorder.
some like found footage kind of like stuff in the film, which you'll see, but I won't spoil.
Yeah, no, of course.
And that feels about right, right? Like 20, so sort of 20 days ish of actual production. How did that feel in terms of pacing?
I felt like that was the right amount of days. Like, I had actually asked for more from my producing team and my AD and I, Kaylee. She felt we were like, this needs 24 days. Like, it needs 24 days. And then they were like, well, we'll give you 17, 18. And that was what was decided on for the budget, but it leaves room for pickups, which we ended up needing. I rewrote the ending and we did that in pickups, and I think it's better. So the ending wasn't hitting when we were watching the fine cut.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, we reshot that just a couple weeks ago.
And was that something you intentionally thought of? Was the idea of doing pickups? Like obviously they said, we'll give you 17 days and then you'll get 2 days of pickups. Was the pit where, because I always find that to be an interesting choice to make, is to say, look, we don't know how this film is going to edit together. So it would be
Yeah.
good to have some money at the end to get the pieces we need in case there's a bit that isn't quite working the way we need it to.
That was a really smart call. Like, I have to hand it to them because I was like, no, we can do it. And we did actually on the 17 days. We ended up shooting like every single thing that we needed. So we had a finished film, so to speak, but we just made it better with the pickups
Mhm.
because we were able to watch the edit and be like, oh, I think this moment needs a bit more clarity. Like, the mom of the main character is now like a much more kind of significant force because I think what people were missing was like, okay, but what's her motive to dye her hair blonde? So there's this kind of theme in the movie that her mom, even while in Iran, was like obsessed with American sitcoms and like North American fashion, and she had blonde hair. So we were able to like add more things about the mom into the story. It's subtle, but it definitely adds some depth to the story that wasn't there before.
No, I think that's great because it's that whole thing of like, there's the script you write in your head, the story you tell in your head, and when you put it down on paper is a screenplay, and then the story that you film, and then the story you edit. And the edit is sort of that final piece.
Yeah, 100%. That's why I like to do the edit too, because it feels like the last time that I get to rewrite the script because I could shuffle scenes around, I could cut it a certain way, I get to choose like each beat. So it does feel like directing too.
Well,
Yeah.
let's talk about post-production because and this is one of the reasons why we wanted to talk to you on Off the Lot because you are currently in post-production on this movie. It has not been released yet, which is super exciting. And so, like you just said, you did your pickup shoots a couple weeks ago. You locked picture. I think I saw a
Mhm,
post online like what last week or the week before. Run us through post-production. What
mhm.
has that whole process been like?
It's been me alone in this very room crying for many, many hours. It's been best part of it has been like QC screenings with family and friends, just like sitting down with my parents, watching it multiple times, sitting down. My partners watched it like I think 1,000 times at this point. The HODs and I watched it over Zoom together, and they were able to give notes. And then we talked about like what we wanted for the pickups that would make it better. That's kind of like where it's grown the most. I watched it with my best friend Chris. I went over to his house, and he was able to help a lot. My assistant editor Jeff came over, gave lots of notes. My exec producer flew from Toronto to watch it with me in my house. So she had other things to do too, but but those like just the feedback, watching it a billion times, watching it with the composers at their house, drinking coffee and being like, actually people have been like really boosting my confidence as well because there's been times where I'm like, I hate it. I should have done it like this. I should have done it like that. And that's hard when you're editing your own thing because then you're thinking, what was the director thinking as the editor? And then there would also be times where I'd look through takes and be like, oh, I did a series here. Like I have so many options. Good job, director. It's a bit a lot of whiplash, but like again, the community and watching it with people and them reminding me like, no, it's good. Like if you just do this or like there's still sound. Sound is like 60% of this movie and they're working on it right now and I have no idea how it's going and they're surprising me with a bunch of music next week.
Oh,
So
very cool. Yeah. And especially
yeah,
with a horror movie and, I mean, any movie, sound is more than 60%. It's 80% as far as I'm
I
concerned
think
of
so.
right? And so yeah, and once you get the sound design in there plus the proper color correction, it's going to be a completely different movie in the best way.
Really excited about, because I finally got the picture lock to a place where I was like, this is watchable, you know, like I'm like, I can watch it without hating myself. And what it took was like putting in a lot of temp score and
Yeah.
like
Right.
temp sound effects. Like I just ended up putting in stuff, and I put in this is a tip for the editors. I put in like color coded markers for each of the other post departments, like VFX is blue, sound is orange, and I'll give like little notes in the bottom corner of like, I want the thunder to start here. I want music to start here. This is what I'm thinking. Do your thing, but like
Here's
here's why
some direction. Yeah.
exactly.
Did you learn well, what are you editing on?
I'm editing on Resolve right now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I've migrated from, I used to be like Adobe Premiere, but I've switched
Me
over
too.
to DaVinci. Yeah, I love it. I think it's fantastic. And I mean,
Yeah.
there's the free version, but the studio is $250 and then it's a lifetime, subscription basically. And it's amazing.
What I like
Yeah.
about it is, if you're a person like yourself who is editing your own stuff, you really can kind of put the whole thing together yourself, and then give it to the experts, and take it to the pros to do the sound mix and all this other stuff. But you can still do a lot of that work yourself, and like you said, fine tune and give and almost be able to provide that direction through the notes and through the way that you put the sound, the temp cues you put in there, and go, okay, this is what I see. Now come back with your interpretation of that.
Now, did you give yourself a timeline for post, or is it just sort of this is going to get done when it gets done?
I kind of gave myself a break, honestly. Like in September, October, I was also just going through a lot, like personally. And so like I felt like I slowed down. I actually got the rough cut assembly together really fast. Like I got that done within a week or two after wrapping. And then I just kind of like took a little bit of space from it. And then in November and especially December was like hustle time. Like December, I was like, I want to finish this by the end of the year because I want to move into 2025 with a project done. I don't want like another project sitting in post purgatory. I already have two of those, and like I don't want any more. So I made a commitment to myself that like before I went to my Las Vegas trip, even if it takes 6 all-nighters, 7 all-nighters, I'm gonna do it. So yeah, the compound clips on DaVinci Resolve are my best friend, and like Jeff, my associate, already like synced everything for me. So everything was like nicely laid out, ready for me, sorted by scene. So it was just a matter of like picking the right take, and then like cutting, timing, pacing was like the biggest thing.
Well, so you've locked picture, sound work is happening now, VFX, color will eventually happen. When do you hope to finish the movie?
April, early
Okay.
April would be the goal. So sound has about a month and a half, and same with VFX. And then we're coloring like mid-March. And then hopefully we should be done before March so I can start submitting in April for festivals.
Great. Do you have a distributor already?
I do not.
Okay. I'm just curious about if any discussions have been happening about your distribution strategy, like looking for a distributor coming out of a festival or self-distribution, because right now everything's changing. So,
I think the goal is like while we're submitting for festivals, like my exec seems to have a pretty good idea of like who we should be reaching out to. And she has a lot of contacts of people that want to see the film. But we've decided like this is a film, especially because there's elements of it that are scary. It won't be scary until like the VFX are there. Because right now there's scenes where you can see all of the, I don't even want to spoil it, but like you can see the things that are not supposed to be there that
yeah.
will later
Right.
removed. You can see like the edges of the prosthetics and stuff. So like
Yeah.
we are fixing all of that and adding stuff that is eventually going to make it feel like the right genre. So we've decided to hold off until we have like all those elements in place in March.
No,
We don't want to
very
hurt
cool.
them.
And do you have an ideal premiere festival?
I do, but I don't want to jinx it. So
Okay.
I won't say it. But I will say that we have spoken to that festival. We were like talking to that festival directly right
Yeah.
now. So I'm hoping that works. I also really like that festival. I really like one of the programmers, and like I mean I haven't met all the programmers. I'm sure they're all great, but like one of them I know and is very lovely. So hopefully they like the film. I really, really hope they like the film.
Oh, that's so great. Well, yeah, I understand. Don't want to jinx it, but that's great that that's already in the works. So, I mean, look, this is so cool. All of this is just so great to hear, and like you're totally killing it. We're all super impressed. And as we wrap up here, we're sort of nearing the end. Curious to know if you have any sort of like, what's one piece of advice that you can give an indie filmmaker out there that's either at the beginning of their career or about to start a feature?
Biggest thing I've learned from this is not to even start production until you have your locations locked. I know that's like a bit of a crazy thing because
I love
location
that.
is in flux, but it's like I think if I could do this again and for my feature things, I would like to have like a location picked as a director and then invite everyone else. If it really doesn't work, we can like change it. But like
Yeah.
that would be the mark of the beginning of prep rather than like we all go on tech scouts. Like and like location surveys 1,000 times for 1,000 locations that we're not even going to use. I'd
Right.
rather just like weed it out myself. And I feel like I know enough now as a director about like, oh, this space won't work because there's no power or,
Yeah.
there's no windows, there's no lighting source. Like I figured those things out. So I'd say to any first time like indie filmmaker is like find the location first before even bringing anyone else on, and make sure like the paperwork is done and that it's locked. Because on every project I've done, that's always seemed to be a problem. Is like a location will pull out, or
Right.
like you're always like it's not good enough. It's not good enough. Like, and I've also learned that I really like building sets. So if I can do that from now on, I'd like to build or use like videos more than I do finding things. But
Yeah, but the good thing with having the locations locked is it really helps your production design department because you're not trying to retrofit your production design to fit a location that was just the most convenient one that you could get to. You've actually got something that fits what you wanted, and then you're just using your production design to augment it.
yeah. And I won't say too much because I want you guys to see the film, but there were two locations in the movie that like switched during filming, like, or like the
Mm.
week before filming, days before. And like it worked out and it looks great. But it just took a lot of like us sticking our heads together and be like, we can do this. We can make it work. I think it all worked out as it was intended to be by fate. But like just locations are the biggest thing because it's kind of like picking your venue for a theater play.
Yeah.
Like once you know the layout and the floor plan, everything else just follows really easily, like the
Well,
blocking comes.
as a director, you're so right. Like you can't really do anything until you know what the location is. You don't know where the camera can go, where the actors are going to be standing. None of that. You can have an idea for how you want to block a scene, but until you have a location, you can't do anything to prep that
Yeah.
scene ultimately. And same thing,
Yeah.
yeah, like Anthony was saying for production design. I've spent so much time in a scout van with just, a producer, a DP, production designer for weeks, looking around at places, and then we finally lock them in, and then the real work begins, and
Hun-
that's a great piece of advice for sure. Keep your locations in mind, and ultimately, it's what's appearing on camera. Find the
Yeah.
best locations possible within your means, because that's just going to add production value to your film.
I wouldn't have even picked shooting dates, but I think it worked out great because August was a perfect time. It was like warm for the most part, except one very rainy night that my crew will remember for the rest of time. But like it was a good time. Like people were free. Like some people that maybe work as teachers, like me. Like in the summer we work less, so it was good. Like it was a great time. But in the future, I feel like I'd rather just like have all my locations sorted first before like being like, this is the day that we're shooting, and I hope everything falls into place before we get there.
Well, on that note, Ava, thank you so much for joining us. This has been so great.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so
I
much. Wishing you all the best.
You
Yeah,
too.
we can't wait to see the movie.
I can't wait to see it. Yeah.
I'm really excited. It's been 2 years in the works, so hopefully it's good.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Thank you.
All right, so that was such a fun chat with Ava. I found it to be super motivating and inspiring, and she just has such a great work ethic and really seems to know how to balance the creative with the business side.
I really loved how Ava goes for things like she decided to write a script and then she just wrote it, and she wrote it over 48 hours or whatever it is,
Yeah.
the first draft of the script, and found out about the application for Talent to Watch, and then just said, well, we're just going to try for it. What do we have to lose? And then obviously one of her big takeaways was how important it is to take care of some of those elements of your script in early, like for example location. Like she talks about so much about how it was so important for her to find the location for her film well before she started pre-production.
Yeah.
And it just as a tactical lesson, that's been something that's really stuck with me.
Yeah, yeah, super smart. And again, the location, it's on camera. It's such a key element for your movie. I still can't get over the fact that she managed to write what I'm assuming is an 80 to 90 page script in 24 to 48 hours and have it good to be good enough to get chosen. I mean, what a testament to her talent as well, right? That was mind-blowing. That took me a second to get over.
Yeah, and I mean, it really just says that, and of course, I don't think that it is necessarily something that anybody could just do. It's not like it's possible for everybody to say, "Oh, great, I am going to go write a screenplay in a weekend." But it does show that a lot of the things that hold us back from getting film projects off the ground and just doing something that's so colossal as making an independent feature film, which is such a big endeavor, is that we don't know where to start. We're afraid of the time it's going to take and of the amount of work it's going to take, and we're just worried we're never going to get it done. And that just shows you that if you've got this in your head and you want to get it down, you can get a rough draft of a first feature film written and ready to go in a very short period of time, and then who knows what can happen after that.
Yeah, and
Applying to
like let's also be clear that that draft that she submitted to Telefilm is definitely not the draft that they shot. That is the movie, right? Like that script would have gone through so many more drafts and revisions by the time they got to camera. So if you're thinking, "Oh my God, she wrote the one draft and then that's the movie," no, 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 that's not how any of this works. But it was a draft good enough to convince Telefilm to see something in the project, along with her director's vision, the rest of the application. The script honestly is not a huge component for the overall application for Telefilm. It's part of the creative materials, but they're all weighted differently.
Yeah, and you want to get your draft to a point where it's serviceable and where it's good and it's ready to it's a story that you want to tell and that you're excited about. But you always have to understand that there are going to be practical revisions. There's going to be logistics and things that just come along that are going to change how that story turns out. So the first draft of the script is not what the movie is going to be. Even the shooting draft of the script is probably not what the movie is going to be, because once you shoot it, you are going to realize that certain elements don't work the way that you thought they would, and then
And they even went back to do reshoots.
exactly, yeah,
part of the process. Yeah.
they realized they were missing some story beats, or some story beats weren't landing the way that they thought they would. It's a good permission structure to say, look, you don't have to have it all perfect in order to get going. You just have to get going. And then as long as you leave open the idea that you can fix things, you can go and you can solve it later. It doesn't have to be perfect on the day on set in order for it to work. You can go, okay, look, we got what we got. We are going to edit it now, and we're going to see how it turns out, and then we're going to go back and we might have to reshoot something. Or it happens all the time. I mean, biggest budget features always have to go back and do reshoots.
It's built into the budget.
Yeah, maybe that's something we should all be doing, is budgeting 3 to 5 days of reshoots, just so that we keep that buffer and keep that money aside, knowing that we hopefully won't use it, but having it there. What I really love on this is that she's taking personal stories and turning them into genre type films. And this is really kind of a cool aspect of of how her filmmaking is, the kind of films that she's making. Like she's making these genre thriller horror style films, but they're based on personal stories. They're based on on childhood events, on real events, but then she's taking them and turning them into allegories.
Yeah, well, she's tapping into the most important element as a storyteller is having a personal connection in some way to the story that you're telling. It's not a requirement, but it really helps if you do have a connection in some way to the source material, and being able to then express it through your lens, and the audience will feel that then. And so from Zip to Foreigner, she's tapping into what makes her tick and putting that on the screen, and we're all getting to experience it, and it's a great thing.
Yeah, and it ensures that her work, as long as she kind of continues down this path, her work will never become generic.
Yeah.
Because there's only really one Ava, right? There's only one person like her who can tell these types of stories in the way that they're told.
Okay, so that's it for this week's episode of Off the Lot. We want to hear from you. If there are any topics you want covered or any questions you'd like answered, please email us at podcast.offthelot@gmail.com.
You can also find us on Instagram and YouTube. Our handles are in the show notes. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. And share this with your friends. See you next week.